is
Okay, that's
it
good.
brushes my coat. Somebody let me know. So the title of my talk is Human Odometry, Gait Symmetry, and Smart Perceptual Instruments. I thought about calling this deja vu all over again, because as you will see, much of what I have to say has been touched on, if not downright stolen by other people. So 25 years of research on perception by dynamic touch, in particular on the perception of length by dynamic touch, shows that it is robust in terms of different grips of the hand and different kinds of exploration, so that you can just wield about the wrist, or you can wield the whole arm, get a little pinch grip, or this kind of balancing thing on hands. As somebody had shown us already, we can extend this to sticking the rod on the foot and having people wield about the ankle, or attaching it to the back of the neck and having them wield about the torso. And something you haven't heard here is that we can get patients who have a numb limb. So no feeling in the legs because of diabetic neuropathy, no feeling in the arm due to a lesion on the spinal cord, yet those people perform the same. In all of these cases, perceived length by dynamic touch is constrained by the invariance of rotational dynamics. So it seems that the achievements of muscle-based perceptions are indifferent to neural, anatomical, and experiential factors, right? So clearly you're going to have more experience in wielding objects and perceiving objects with hands and foot and neck, and also indifferent to profound sensory challenges. So perception is constrained by information, not local sensations. So we've been trying to characterize dynamic touch in terms of its instantiating a smart perceptual instrument. One more time, you've already seen this sort of thing that Jeff had gone through. So it is smart in capitalizing on invariance of the situation. Once the scientist has appropriately identified the invariant, then perception is a single valued function of that invariant. It's not just that things are ordered appropriately, smaller versus larger, but that they are in the appropriate range. And the instrument is softly assembled out of, in varied ways. In particular, we would say that it's assembled from dynamic properties, not particular specific anatomical components. The robustness of the achievements of dynamic touch, in particular in the numb situations and the whole body situations, has gotten us to start to think about the information having to be extracted from the whole body tissue deformation, and in particular to characterize the medium for haptic perception in terms of a continuum of connective tissue. Now, I won't go into this here, but there is a forthcoming paper by Fonseca and Turvey in Journal of Motor Behavior that really elaborates that view. I'm simply going to use it as a way to suggest that it gives us an avenue to understand human odometry. How can legged locomotion be informative about something like distance? Might gait dynamics be a smart perceptual instrument for detecting information about traverse distance? So the notion for humans initially was conjectured by Berkeley, who suggested locomotion activity as such measures distance. And as we've already seen, an experimental manipulation is fairly straightforward. You give the person, in this case, a blindfold and sound muffling earphones, and you have them walk out until the experimenter says stop, and then they turn around and are instructed just to walk back as far as they came. As we saw from what Michael showed us, yes, indeed, people can do this. Our question here is simply, is it scaled? Are they in the right ballpark of distances? And what we see with a walk out, walk back, is a slope of 1 and an intercept near 0. They're very, very good. But is this instrument smart? Is it soft? If I configure it over variations in gait and speed, can people still accomplish this? So this time we have them run out and walk back. Very different number of strides, very different duration of the walking, different energy costs, but it's overlaid with slope of 1, intercept of 0. What we heard in Carla's talk is that gaits differ in symmetry, and run and walk come from the same symmetry group. They're both primary symmetry gaits, and we know that there are secondary symmetry gaits. So the hesitation walk, as she said, is one that people do in formal ceremonies such as weddings and funerals, as it turns out. The gallop walk is like what happens when you limp, right? So you're always leading with one foot. So can secondary gaits measure distance accurately? Well, here it looks not so much. We have them gallop, walk out, walk back, hesitation, walk out, walk back, and we see a dramatic undershoot. So gait symmetry matters to human odometry. So what I've done here is to pull over the walk-walk curve from the first panel and the gallop walk-walk curve from the middle panel. And we have to ask about this issue of determinacy. It seems like we have, for one value of distance, we have two values of the report. Are the secondary gaits faulty measurers of distance? Is that what's going on here? So this guy is doing well, walk is measuring it well, gallop walk is not measuring it well. Well, of course, the observant among you will notice that not only do we use a secondary gait for measuring here, but we also switch symmetries between the measure and the report. Are the secondary gaits faulty? Well, if we go gallop, walk, keep in the same symmetry group on the report as we did on the measure, then they're just fine. So the secondary gaits are not faulty. In fact, if I switch this up, so if I have them walk out and gallop walk back, I get overshoot instead of undershoot. So it's in the same amount, just in the opposite direction. What seems to matter here is breaking gait symmetry. So as we said, it's the perceptual instrument is not assembled from specific anatomical components. So we should be able to mix it up a little bit. Let's soften up this instrument a little bit. Here I've got a subject, Eusebio, and for any of the Portuguese who are old enough to know Eusebio, number 13, and the national team, is again blindfolded and is riding on a skateboard, but now doing the gait in the arms. So here's Eusebio is going to propel himself on the skateboard or with the gallop walk. And if we look at those data, they look exactly like the legged locomotion. That is, if you go out with the secondary gait and come back with the primary gait where the gait is instantiated in the arms, you get undershoot with symmetry break, but you're right on target with primary to primary. Soften it again in an experiment that is intended to replicate the ant work. So this is our version of stilts. So we couldn't actually put them on stilts, or haven't dared yet to put them on stilts. But we put them on very high platform shoes. They're 10 centimeters, not quite as high as some Portuguese shoes. Carlos, I think, are probably that high. But these are for regular kids who don't know how to walk on platform shoes. Stacked up shower shoes, right? So you get just a bunch of soles and glue them together. Those are their long legs. Their short legs, we don't cut them off. We actually ask them to crawl on their knees. So they're, in fact, walking like this. So they are upright, but they're walking like this on knee pads because it really hurts. And now if you look at these data, so you have them do, in this case, long legs out, long legs back, short legs out, long legs back. So there is a change of gait here, but not a change in the data. These do not differ. So it seems that in the biped case, that gait symmetry rules, walking is walking. So whether you're walking with your hands, walking on stilts, walking on your knees, it's still walking, and the outbound is equaled by the return. The measure is equaled by the report. So what kind of perceptual instrument might this be? If you can believe it, we're looking for an analogy to bimanual coordination, that's the Haken-Kelso-Bunz equation that you have heard about a bit. So we want to see, can we exploit this analogy in a formal sort of systematic way? If we pull out some of the characteristics of the HKV equation, we'll see if they play out on both sides. So the order parameter is a collective variable to describe the behavior of the system. In terms of bimanual coordination, where the task is to swing two pendulums together, the order parameter is the relative phase of left versus right. For the odometer, the order parameter we're conjecturing is the difference in distance between measure and report. So they could undershoot. In that one, they were on target. Here is an undershoot. The attractors are the stabilities of the system. What is it easiest for the system to do with low variability and accurately? For bimanual coordination, coordinating the two pendulums in phase is easy, or completely anti-phase is straightforward. On the odometer side, it looks like doing primary to primary and secondary to secondary might count as the attractors for this instrument. So I've just shown there's the 180 degrees. Here we have our footfalls to be the same going out and coming back. Also in the HKB equation is an imperfection parameter. It's a way of pushing the system off its stability, off its accuracy. And the way that is brought about in bimanual coordination is by virtue of changing the preferred frequencies between the two pendulums. So I can have a long pendulum that likes to move slowly and a short pendulum that likes to look quickly. And look, did I say that? Move quickly, look quickly. And trying to coordinate those becomes a source of imperfection in the coordination. On the odometer side, changing the gait symmetry might serve that same purpose. The might is, well, let's see what happens if we do in fact detune the system. What does it look like? Oops, I did something else here somewhere. Oh yeah, so let me do that first to show the breaking of symmetry. So here's our detuning effect. The familiar one in bimanual coordination, when delta omega, when the preferred frequency of the left and the right is the same, then you're on target. You're where you're supposed to be. If one is longer than the other or slower than the other, then you get effectively overshoot. If the other is slower than the one, then you get undershoot, which is the very same thing that we see in odometry. When outbound, when M and R are the same, you're on target. When you switch them up, then you get error you get the overshoot or the undershoot. What this is suggesting to us, and this is an evolving story, it's suggesting to us that the dynamics of the system that's coupled in series, right? Because we're going out, we're measuring, and then we're reporting that the dynamics of systems coupled in series is the same as the dynamics of a system coupled in parallel. Right? They're doing these things at the same time, but somehow this story is teaching us things about that story. Things that happen here seem to be happening there. In particular, for present purposes, we're looking to model M and R as a coupled dynamical system. And what we have here is a single MR instrument. It's not that M is one haptic perceptual instrument and R is a different one, but MR is the single haptic perceptual instrument. And with that, I have saved time for discussions, but I have done. Okay, so before Carla runs off to the train, quickly.
I was going to be running by here at high speed. So if someone has a symmetry group question, please raise his hand. And she's moving by. There's one at the back.
Way in the back.
Well, question.
I have a question for in relation to the ants. The ants, the length, the leg length, and so would change.
Question for Carla?
Yes, but actually for all of you. The famous work of von Holst showed that if you remove legs completely, you change gaits, and it's very easily learned, instantly at least. So this also changes the symmetry group, I guess. So could you check these things that you just showed, Claudia, with ants? In that sense.
So put an ant on a skateboard?
No. Change the symmetry
Oh,
group.
change the symmetry groups. Yeah. Yes. There you go. I would say that.
Right. So yeah, of course, yeah, we tried. So we did two things. We had them walk over corrugated sheets that had a period length of like that is almost the same and a little shorter and a little longer than stride length to impair with the walking. So that made them stumble a lot. They still tried to maintain trip.gait, and they were really good in estimating homing distance. So accuracy and certainty, we call that precision, I guess, was the same. As well, we did amputations of middle legs, both middle legs, and one middle leg and the opposite side hind leg to reduce one tripod by 2 legs, or to remove 2 legs from one tripod. those ants are still able to estimate homing distance very well, and this impairs walking pretty strong. So accuracy and certainty still pretty good.
They don't show the same undershoot and overshoot as humans show.
So I will point out that Steve Harrison, who can wave because he's in the audience somewhere, there you go, has changed 2 bipeds into a quadruped by softly coupling them with a hunk of foam. And what he gets are the quadruped gaits. Have you done that in an odometry context yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. But Carla, I think, would expect, given the difference in the stumps and stilts data for the humans and the stumps and stilts data for the ants, she would expect that there might well be a symmetry difference as a function of the stilting and stumping of the legs.
Yes, I would.
Yeah, I'll tell you everything she said. She thinks I'm right and he's just full of it. That's what she told me.
I asked him some videos about it, so he's trying to skip.
Okay, bye. Entertain other questions? Any other questions?
So when Carla was introducing the gait symmetry models, she touched upon the notion that the gait symmetry models are grounded in experimental data in extensor and flexor muscle activations, and she talked about it being around the ankle. Now, taking that along with the beginning of your talk, Claudia, where you were talking about having a fascial network or like force flow fields as the potential future to be discovered informational basis for haptic perception, how do you start to think about how this gait symmetry account plays out across your manipulations between the shuffling along on your knees and the stumps, given that your ankles aren't doing anything?
Yeah, one of the reasons for going to the continuum of connective tissue is that is the medium. So once, go back to the wielding for length, once there's some deformation on the system, whether it is sensed locally or not, so the people who are numb aren't sensing it locally, but that still plays out on the whole medium. So I think that is what is happening in the stumps and stilts and the arms and all of that. It is lawfully structuring that medium in a way that the instrument can extract the information that is needed.
But I think, Steve, it's also the case that the neural basis to this theory is quite arbitrary.
Yes.
And what matters is the equation formulation. They just arbitrarily shifted around on what central pattern generators they would want. And I think, in fact, the central pattern generator story is quite irrelevant.
And certainly with your own experiment of connecting people by phone, right? So you no longer have CPGs of one system, right? You've got two completely independent things. So I think it's just like Schmidt coupling through information, right? So once you take the bimanual coordination case and do it across people, you no longer have the central or the single clocking thing or neural story. It is information based.
So if it's
But if there were CPGs, no problem with that, isn't there?
Are you saying CPGs yes or no?
Speak into Steve's microphone, why don't you?
I was just wondering, you can model them as if they were CPGs. So I don't see whether that's a problem or not.
Well, but I think where you choose them to be and how many, that's just all arbitrary. In the theorizing, it's arbitrary. When you read how they set up the equations.
And ontologically, if you call something a central pattern generator, it implies to some of us, at least, that there is something central that is generating patterns that are that are cranking out the behavior. And I certainly don't think that that's true. And I think that Steve's kind of experiment.
So given that I think we all agree that central pattern generators is not going to be where the interesting story is going to be told, do any of you have intuitions about how the mapping would be made from the beautiful regularities we see based upon the gait symmetry predictions, and how those regularities would be embodied in a tensegrity in a fascial network?
I think I leave that to Sergio. Sergio, why don't you wave at the crowd? So if you want an answer to that, you can go to Sergio.
Well, it's a very good question, but I think we
We'll have to wait upon the development of point tensegrity theory of the body, which is underway, as you know, and perhaps by virtue of the developments in building a appropriately constructed second skin that would act as a tensegrity structure, we might be able to fashion mini tensegrities. It's possible. I think it's down the road that's possible, but not tonight.
The tensegrity poster was this afternoon, unfortunately, so we'll again have to find Serge. Yes?
Why are you making faces?
Am I making faces?
Do you agree?
I'm just thinking, you know, I'm new to action perception symmetry models. I'm just thinking about how this would fit to my knowledge that I acquired by now. So
Explain what you reasonably confident that there is not a symmetry break for substance.
yeah, I'm pretty much convinced there's no symmetry break during the Stills and Sims experiment. And yeah, but I'm not. So I'm sure, pretty much sure they're not using CPG. I mean,
What is stripe integration?
So it's just, let's put that as a term, as pedometry as well. So pedometry is just, that means the measurement of distance by means of your feet. It's that's basically it. Stride integration means that you're using your strides to measure distance. Not just the feet, but the strides actually. That also includes frequency or stride length, or couple, like if this is coupled, like the coupling of frequency and distance, stride length. That's basically it.
So it's more than number of steps,
Yeah.
because it includes the frequency as well.
But pedometry doesn't mean number. Pedometry doesn't necessarily mean step counting. The pedometer does not mean a step counter. The pedometer is just like a very, it's just a word that describes the distance measurements by means of your legs or feet, which is could be done in any way, using the legs or strides.
I have a question for you. At my home university in Norway, we have a neuroscientist couple working, Edward and Mike Moser, and they work with rats and the hippocampus, and they have published a lot lately on grid cells.
Right.
Do you know about that?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
What do you think?
It's a beautiful work. So it's at the Karolinska.
No?
No.
In
So,
Trondheim and in...
okay, so there's somebody at the Karolinska in Stockholm as well. Okay. It's a beautiful work. What can I say? There are grid cells in rats. Might there be an equivalent in insects? We don't know. You know, I've been asked these questions a lot. Like, for instance, in Janelia Farm, so at Caltech, where I've been as a postdoc, because people there are also interested in that. But I don't know.
I always have trouble believing their data. I think somehow their results are a kind of an artifact of the way they're measuring these things. But I don't have any proof for it.
So I have a PhD, fellow PhD student. She's now at the Karolinska as a postdoc, and she's actually doing those experiments. And I'm pretty much convinced that this is actually happening, that there are grid cells. But yeah, that's a long story, new box
I
to
prefer
open
the
up.
use of optic flow though.
I like optics well too.
Can I have another question? Another question out there?
So as we've talked about before, so there's the other puzzling result for me from the gait symmetry story is some of Schwartz's and Mittelstadt's findings that walking speed on the way out versus on the way back also challenges distance reproduction. So you walk at a slow gait on the way out and a normal speed on the way back, or a fast speed on the way out, slow speed on the way out. You get mismatches between those. And so I think the gait symmetry story might be an interesting way in to try to figure out what the information, kind of the invariant information is, and whatever this tensegrity or idiopathetic variables that are getting measured. But there might be other ways in too, such as looking at over all these transformations, what, as in any measuring instrument, right? It's gauge field theory, right? You take a measuring instrument around in the universe, and you see what remains invariant as you move your measuring instrument around. And we're kind of doing that with distance reproduction, right? So that's our measuring instrument. So what transformations allow that measurement to remain invariant and what do not? And we shouldn't be wedded to gait symmetry as the principle.
Well, let me give you. Well, I thought we had this discussion, by the way.
I read the paper. I couldn't understand it. So sorry.
So the evidence is that which actually brought the research on the Mittelstadt experiments to a halt, because it ain't velocity.
Yeah.
This is the challenge. What you can do is you can ask people to walk slowly, you can ask them to walk fast, and they adopt a regularly fast gait or a regularly slow gait. They are different in meters per second, but it turns out that what really matters is what they intended. Intending faster and intending slower is what mattered. Not the speed at which they move fast, and not the speed at which they move slow. Speed was not the variable. And at that point, you stop. Right? Because at that point, you're now looking at not a simple Mittelstadt story. And this is not the variable. The variable is intention. There's a constraint which is probably playing out in the metabolism in some way. And we have further data on that, which goes, again, way beyond the Mittelstadt stuff. And the interaction between the intention manipulation and the more standard manipulations we're looking at. So I agree, you do the transformations and you see what's the case, but I have to say, speed is not one of them.
But so okay, if the intended speed is now influencing your results, that doesn't seem to fit in with the gait symmetry theory either, right? Because it's whether it's intended or actual. The same
as I said, well, that research stopped at that point, because the problem now is become elevated somewhat, right? The conceptual tools needed to, in fact, just grasp what's going on in that one experiment is a set that we don't quite have at the moment. And I've worried a lot about intentionality in movement for about 30 years, and I find these data very puzzling, by the way. But there's more to the story than this gait symmetry. But the gait symmetry is doing a lot. It makes unexpected predictions, right? Unexpected, and I think I'm still rather keen on believing, and I'd like to see if we can get some folks to do the math. But I'm keen on believing that there's a subtlety in the ways in which the tripods are relating to each other spatially and temporally, and that subtlety, I think, could possibly be there, but the methods used so far to look at if anything changed in the tripod gait structure of the ants have failed to find anything. But I'm willing to think that possibility is still there.
But doesn't the amputation data address that? Because now you don't have a tripod at all, and you're still...
But the experiment, I don't think, has probably been done right. You haven't gone out with all tripods and come back with 2 of them missing. Something like that.
I think you did.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You did, so they came back with exactly the same, and there was an optic flow.
Right, they can cover. Yeah, so we did both, like uncovered, covered, and all that. So,
Right. So
but that means
we did all the controls. I'm very keen on doing all the controls all the time. Controls are, you need to do all the controls that I learned from Rudiger Moreno. So
that means 6-legged and 4-legged are identical. As
Or they're measuring the same quantity.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we're going to relax.
In